It is true. YouTube and many other places with big online audiences, anti-war content is doing very well. But unfortunately, that is not what the vast majority, and particularly the voting boomer base of this country is watching. They're watching cable news. And over on cable news, it is just a main line of pro-war propaganda. And even worse, you are just watching the framing by the Trump administration be accepted here by a lot of the American people. Here's CNN's Harry Enton. We got to tell everybody the truth. The truth is that if Trump does decide to strike Iran, it will probably be pretty popular. Let's take a listen.
And overall, I feel like there's more support for Donald Trump's positions than is comically acknowledged. Oppose Iran getting a nuclear weapon. I mean, look at this. 79% of adults agree on that. They agree with Donald Trump. Iran cannot get a nuclear weapon. 83% of Republicans, 79% of independents, 79% of Democrats. When you get 79% of Democrats and 83% of Republicans agreeing on anything, you know that that position is the very clear majority in this country. And so the American public is with Donald Trump. They definitely oppose Iran getting nuclear weapons. For Iran's trying to make a nuclear weapon, look at this. Overall, you get the slight plurality. I mean, it's within the margin of error, but the slight plurality of Americans actually favor U.S. airstrikes compared to 47% opposing it.
There you go. You know,
and you saw the Republican numbers there.
Republican number is 70%. I mean, I guess I could take it to the bank that there's 30% of people out there, but let's all be honest. At the same, look, there is some confounding stuff. And I'll also say this about America. Americans are fickle, right? So at the very beginning, do you remember what the numbers were on Ukraine? It was like 90-10.
Oh, yeah. And
it was literally 90-10.
I will pay higher gas prices. I will suffer. I will sacrifice.
Yeah. How'd that work out for you, huh? Yeah. I didn't want to say I told you so, but I guess I'm going to do it. But that's part of what, I guess, reading a book can get you. This is the problem, though. I've read enough to say the vast majority of the American people supported the war in Vietnam. Eventually, everybody always has retrograde amnesia. They're like, no, I never supported it. Bullshit, okay? The vast majority of the American people supported the war in Vietnam up until 1968, and actually even well into the 1970s. The vast majority of the American people supported the war in Iraq. The vast majority of the American people supported the Libyan intervention in 2011. The vast majority of the American people wanted to pick a good side in Syria. They supported the strikes on the Assad regime. If you were to poll people and be like, hey, do you think it's worth taking out North Korea's nuclear weapon in 2017? Most people are going to say yes. Now, what I always say is that if you ask them to consider the consequences, that's when things usually change a little bit. But even then, let's all be honest.
We're bad at predicting the consequence. Like, people are bad at projecting into the future. 10 steps down the road, this is going to go poorly.
And look, I get it. It's difficult because it requires, like a level of critical thinking that the vast majority of people don't want. And I'm not putting people down. Most people are living their lives, and they don't want to think very much about the news or war or whatever. Now, I would ask you to, because it does, of course, affect your gas prices and, the national debt and whether we have the social programs and abilities, as we all learned from the war in Iraq, but, you do continue to live your life. Let's go to put the Economist poll up here. At least some good news, I think, for me. Most Americans think that the U.S. military, quote, should not get involved in the conflict between Israel and Iran. So here they say, do you think the U.S. military should get involved in the conflict? The reason why I think that's really important is that doesn't just say strike, it says involved in the conflict.
Here's what I noticed. It doesn't say anything about nuclear weapons.
Yes.
And this is why the most important thing that you can impress upon people is this is not about nuclear weapons. Because the moment, let's say we ask the public, do you support a regime change war in Iran?
Yeah.
I guarantee you the results of that would be overwhelmingly no. But let me tell you, if you were listening to any cable news network, if you are listening, and some independent media too, the question is, and this is what Trump wants it to be, should Iran have a nuke or not? That is not the question. That is not the appropriate framing. That is not what this is about. Iran was not pursuing a nuclear weapon. In fact, if you don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon, you should be outraged that this bombing blew up the potential for successful diplomatic negotiations to make sure that Iran does not get a nuclear weapon, because the logic is much more straightforward now for Iran to race to a bomb, as we were discussing before. Yep. So these polls that have come out so far are all over the place. And it is the most significant indicator I have ever seen of how important it is to get the narrative and the information right, and for people to understand what is really going on here. Because yes, if you ask the American people, hey, should we do some limited strikes to make sure Iran doesn't have a bomb? Yeah, a majority is going to say, yes, I agree, which is why Trump is consistently saying they can't have a bomb, they can't have a bomb, they can't have a bomb. That's why that's his line, because he knows that is solid political ground. The moment people realize that's not what this is about, this is about another like disastrous regime change war, then the politics completely change and completely shift. And so again, that's why the most important thing that you can impress upon people is what this is really about, and that the idea of the nukes is fake, invented, there is no evidence to support it, and that is a pretext to obscure the real goal of what's going on here.
Let's also put this Washington Post stuff on the screen, because this gives you a very, very clear picture about how this all looks as well, in terms of the propaganda and in terms of the framing. Can we put that up, please, guys? This new Washington Post element that we have. They ask, at this time, would you support or oppose the U.S. military launching airstrikes against Iran over its nuclear program? You've got 25% support, 30% unsure, 45% opposed. But you can still see that that unsure number is pretty big. So they say 47% of Republicans, they already support it, okay? 29% unsure, so that's a vast majority, or they're support or unsure. Only 24% oppose. Democrats, kind of the opposite, since it's a bit more partisan. But this gives me a little hope here with the independent figure. 20% support, 36% unsure, 44% say that they oppose. Military and veteran household, it's actually a little bit higher there for support. There's still some strong opposed numbers, and same with non-military. But the point is that you can still see a significant amount of support here amongst the Republican Party already, as long as you sell it to them about nukes. And this is why people who want nuance or have warnings always lose, is because we have to start from disproving the allegation and then warning about 40th order consequences. Now, I wish, though, that we would have enough experience at this point that I could just say Libya and someone would be like, oh yeah, that's a good point, right? You know, oh, it was just about striking air defense in Libya. Nothing else, guys. No boots on the ground. Oh, except over 1 million people flooded Europe and caused a massive demographic crisis. Oh, Syria, wait, not a single American stepped on the ground. Oh, wait, except until ISIS accepted a caliphate and a bunch of people were slaughtered in the Bataclan. And actually, it's 2025, and there's still over 1,000 troops that are on the ground in Syria today. You know, it's like having to warn about all these consequences. Same with Iraq. You know, the Iraq question was about nuclear weapons. Now, if they had correctly posed to the American people, do you support nation building in Iraq? I do not think that the vast majority would have supported it. But the point is once you're in, and you just slowly get bought in. And next thing you know, oh, we have to bring peace between the Sunni and the Shia because Americans are super qualified for that one. Right? And then, oh, actually, no, it's a civil war. We got to get involved here.
We got to make sure girls can go to school in Afghanistan.
Now we got exactly, right?
And we went from seeing that, by the way, in regard to Iran.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, yeah, oh my God, I'm reading this book right now about I told you about it. It's called Revolutionary Iran. Fantastic book. I highly recommend it. This whole, they wore miniskirts into, that was in like one neighborhood in Tehran, okay? As usual, it's always the same.
Well, you know, and that also misrepresents the reality for women in Iran right now. I'm not saying that they don't, discriminate and it's not oppressive, et cetera, but you have like a huge number of women who are preponderance of the STEM graduates, et cetera. I mean, the whole thing is just like distorted all the way around.
The whole point is that it's nuanced, it's a difficult picture, okay? You had another Islamic nation called Turkey, which basically tried to eradicate the religion and all of religiosity from society. Want to ask how that worked out? There's a guy named Erdogan who's in charge, basically who came on the back of a rebellion against that, despite years, decades of propaganda against the religion of Islam. Turns out they're not very good at it. My only point is that, look, whether things should be or should not be is not my decision. That's for the people of Iran. That's for the people of Turkey. You live how you want to live, and I'll live the way I want to. But to transpose like these Western neighborhoods onto the entire society is ridiculous. Like, I'm thinking in Jordan. Anybody who's ever been to Jordan, there's like this one neighborhood where all the Americans hang out, and there's like a gay bar there, and people will be like, oh, see, it's such a progressive society. And I'm like, yeah, there's one. Okay? And the reason they all go there is because they can drink or whatever. Go and poll the vast majority of the city of Amman and be like, hey, what do you think about this? They'd probably be outraged. Or they just live and let live, and they exist in one place. This is not to denigrate they can live how they would like.
And Amman is
Yeah.
maybe the most Western.
Yeah, one of the most
capital
Western places.
But there's so much to say about it. And here's the bottom line too. It's not that I don't care about the fate of women and girls, but I know a regime collapse in Iran is going to be devastating for everyone. That is the most devastating thing you can imagine, right? So the justifications that we're already running through for why this would be a great idea. I mean, it's like a speed run through what we saw throughout all of these failed regime change operations. I want to read a few of the comments because what Washington Post does is they do the poll, but they also talk to the voters about their justifications, which are kind of interesting. So they have a Nevada woman, 62, Republican, voted for Trump. She says the U.S. cannot allow Iran to have nukes. Israel is our friend. Iran is the main sponsor of terrorism. So that is a Fox News watcher through and through, watching the same content as the President of the United States. You have another Republican, though, who voted for Trump, 74-year-old woman. She says, I think Trump and the U.S. need to continue negotiations and alternatives before the U.S. bombs Iran and starts World War III. Okay, that's good. I like that one. You've got a Democrat who didn't vote, says Iran is not an imminent threat to the U.S. You've got an independent who voted for Trump, 44-year-old man who says, I'm not convinced they have nuclear weapons. We need proof. But I'll tell you, if you look further into this poll and the results that they got, and this again is why Trump is saying over and over again, they can't have a nuke, they can't have a nuke, they can't have a nuke, because 82% of respondents to this poll, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, 82% said they are concerned about Iran getting a nuclear weapon. So, that's why they feel like the firmest ground is when they're trying to convince you that they were right on the edge of getting this nuclear weapon. We have to act now. And if they're able to persuade the public of that for some time, they will enjoy some level of support. Now, I will tell you, I had, I won't say who exactly, but I had a young man, 19 years old, who is, not a news watcher. He is very much your like normie, not super, he works in trades. He's not focused on any of this stuff, who was deeply concerned about this, actually. Like, this broke through to him.
Good.
And he's the Theo Von watcher. Like, that's where he falls.
Yep.
And so I think in terms of independence, I think you have a real chance to make the case. When I look at those Republican numbers who already support it, and then you've got a whole bunch of them who are unsure, I just look at that and I know the minute Donald Trump makes the decision, they're all going to lock in, and like Trump says it's good, so it must be good. That's what we're doing.
I mean, if you guys want to know what they're watching over on Fox, I tweeted this, but literally they had on the son of Elie Wiesel, the guy who wrote Night, the Holocaust survivor, to come on and to compare striking Iranian nuclear facilities to bombing Auschwitz during World War II at the height of the Holocaust. That's the level of shit that these people are imbibing into their brains. And there's not a single element of skepticism of anything that you're hearing. Usually the way that they frame the question is like, there is a risk of foreign entanglement. Why don't you tell us why that's not true? That's
right.
the closest that they'll come to even presenting the risk. It's just so bad. It's honestly, it might even be worse than 2003. The only like shining thing that I saw is that Tucker interview went so massively viral. Like viral into the sense that, like you said, the 19-year-olds are listening. Like on Liberal, on Conservative, wherever. Like it was all over TikTok, and it was framed. It was exactly the right bite-sized moment, and all of that. And that really did break through. Now, we didn't have that in 2003, and it's probably not enough to stop what's coming. But at the very least, it exists in the historical record.
Real quick, I have to correct myself. It's 70% who are concerned about the Iranian nuclear program. So
Still high.
Still very high.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.